Hey, everybody. Welcome to Behind the Scenes with Axiom Medical. I'm your host, Jason McElhenney. This is a monthly series where we go behind the scenes here at Axiom and talk to the people that make this company tick. I have the very fortunate position today of interviewing our Executive VP of Sales, Chad Winkle. Chad, how are you?
Hey, Jason, I'm great. Thanks for having me today.
Of course, of course. I'm lucky to have gotten you. I know you're extremely busy, so I'm extremely thankful that we could get you on here today. So why don't you go and introduce yourself to everybody?
Yeah, glad to. Again, thanks for having me. The pleasure is mine. I know I've had a lot of team members participate in this, and um, really appreciate them coming on as well too, and giving a view into behind the scenes for them. And so I felt a little bit obligated to join in the party and the fun that they were having. So I'm Chad Winkle. I'm the Executive Vice President of Sales here at Axiom Medical. Been in that role just over 4 years, going on 25 plus years in the business world, really doing a variety of functional roles, but it all started in sales for me. And so I've always had an affinity for sales and B2B sales. Have led marketing organizations and done marketing jobs, sales operations. I had a brief stint in the consulting and training world, which was absolutely, fantastic. I really enjoyed it. Um, but I was always pulled back to leading sales teams and, helping them perform at the highest level they possibly could. So I have really enjoyed my time here with the team at Axiom and our clients. What our nurses do each and every day is really something special. And so to be able to talk about them and what they do each and every day is really a pleasure. So really enjoy that.
Great, great. So you said you've been with us just over 4 years. Let's walk us back. Just over 4 years ago, there was a thing called a pandemic that happened with COVID coronavirus. You started, and jog my memory, you started how long before that happened?
About an hour before that happened. I think my first day was whatever the first business day in January was in 2000. And so, matter of fact, the first trip I took was we had a board meeting in February in San Francisco. And, it was one of those board meetings where I just joined the company. And so for me, it was still learning and getting my feet under me a little bit and meeting a lot of people, learning the business and what we did. And so to be really rushed at that time, that was the last real business travel, not only for me, but for, most everyone for quite a long time. Um, Even while we were there was some suspicion that something was happening, with the idea of a pandemic. And it was a surreal time because, I'd only been with the company for about 6 weeks when everything started to move into shutdown mode. And so it certainly brings about a lot of questions and concerns, but much like everyone from leadership throughout the entire company, we really just took it head on and rolled with the punches. And like I told someone the other day, when you make the best of the way things work out, things tend to work out for the best. And so I think collectively as a company, we made the best of it, and as a result, it worked out just fine.
Yeah, it was a tumultuous time. I remember you coming into the office, and we have a new guy here, Chad.
Yeah.
And didn't really get to spend a lot of time with you because coming into a new position as yours is, there's a lot of stuff to do and it's very busy. And then we all got sent home. I remember the day, it was Friday, March 13th. We all got sent home 4 years ago. And then brief interactions throughout that, and as we started to ease up the restrictions, we got to go back in the office a little bit. And it was a different time. In February, I was traveling around that same time. I was at a conference in Canada, and we all same had that same feeling of like, "Whoa, could this be what's coming? If we fly or if we're here, are we going to get COVID? What is this stuff?" So
Right.
glad that we're all safe and sound. So walk us through what you're doing now. I know my impression of you when you first started is you brought this sort of coach, sports coach kind of feeling with you. And I know that sports are pretty important to you. Is that a true assessment?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think we can, in sales, a lot of times we equate a lot of what we do to the sports world because there's so many functions that have I think different and varying levels of ability to measure performance. And I'll probably interject into a lot of baseball analogies here, but the baseball world is full of measurements and metrics. And in sales, we have a lot of that same luxury at our disposal. We can measure lots and lots and lots of things. It's just very quantitative, starting with, activity and pipeline and results and average deal size and duration and sales cycle and you name it, right? Like they just, the function lends itself, I think, to a lot of metrics and measurement. And to me, as a result, there becomes a lot of parallels than with the sports world and coaching. And I'm not a coach. I didn't do anything in the coaching world before, but it was something I always experienced with sales leaders that I worked with or sales leaders that I worked for during my own time as a seller. Right, you kind of feel like you're an athlete being coached, right? You're getting feedback. I think it's healthy in a lot of ways because you become a little more transparent. I think you become a little more self-aware. One of the things I had to learn very early on in my career is to be a little bit less defensive, right? Like, well, what do you mean that's not very good? I did the best I could. And I think being able to learn to accept criticism and critique and coaching and feedback is a really, really important part of not only an athlete's journey, but certainly a salesperson's journey. And if I look at top salespeople that I've had the great fortune to work with and around for many years, including some of our sellers on our team now, right? Like they tend to be very introspective and they welcome feedback and they welcome coaching. And so I think there's a lot of parallels there in the two worlds. We certainly see it, in everything that we do.
Not being on your team and not seeing how the day-to-day works. I know for me, I tried sales. I'm just not good at it. I can talk to people about any type of topic for as long as anybody wants, and I love it. But as soon as I got to have someone sign on that dotted line, that's where I'm not good at it. But you seem to bring a calming force that maybe I'm wrong on picking up on it, but as a leader you seem very sort of calm, but maybe behind the scenes it's not so much. I'm joking, of course I'm joking, but you seem to bring quite a calm presence. Yeah, but
just on the other side of this camera here, there's pure pandemonium taking place, I assure you. No, I mean, look, we all get, a lot of different feelings internally. So you try to keep, the team well balanced and centered, and you try to be, I think, the right kind of leader for them. But you mentioned something. You said I'm not very good at it. Some of the best sellers I've ever worked with have been really terrible at the stereotypical side of sales, and to me. And I probably had a leader, and if you ask me how did you get here and what brought you to this point, it's really just a string of, great mentors, great leaders, great individuals. And one stands out in particular. And I think he just had a absolute disdain for any stereotypes associated with sales. And we all know every function has stereotypes, right? Whether it's finance or marketing or legal, we'll bash on Chuck a little bit because of his legal function and lawyer role. But sales has some really defined stereotypes, and some are accurate and some are not so much, right? Like, and so I think we all have an idea of what the stereotype says we're supposed to act like or we're supposed to behave like as a salesperson. And what I found is there's a whole lot more to it than that. And if you follow those stereotypes, you probably won't be very successful. And if you are, it'll be very, very short term. And that's really not what we're after. I mean, Axiom's a great example of just a super high quality, high value add service. And we certainly want to go tell people about it, that may not be familiar with what we do. But we want to do so in a way that, is really informative and educational. And, I think being all those things around being an expert and value added is really, really important, without slipping into the stereotypical side of, we're trying to convince people to do things they don't want to do. But yeah.
Well, there's hope for me yet, I guess.
Absolutely.
I'm not sure about that. Sales just isn't for me. I can talk about a lot of stuff, but yeah, sales just isn't for me. But you make me think that maybe I can do it.
Well, clearly photography is. So, I have to ask you, because I asked if this was a two-way deal, but, much like other hobbies and passions, what got you into photography?
Movies and movies and photos.
Okay.
I was always interested in how the image was crafted, like why a photo or a shot from a movie spoke to me, and I wanted to figure out how that was done. And so I just kept taking more and more photographs, hoping to get a photo that I liked.
That's great. Well, I know you're a baseball fan, so I saw a clip the other day. There was a little bit of a spotlight on Randy Johnson's new career as a photographer, and apparently he had a grand opening or debut in a museum in Arizona.
Wow.
Really showing a lot of his recent photography work all around the world, which is really fascinating. So it's quite an interesting journey.
Yeah, I need to check that out. I know Ken Griffey Jr. Shoots a lot of baseball games now, and he was over in Korea for the game. So I think that's fantastic. I mean, here's a guy that has more money than he needs, and all the accolades and adoration from every baseball fan, and he's just, no, I want to do this. It's fun.
Exactly. They actually, in that documentary, I'll look for it and send it to you, but they actually highlighted Ken Griffey Jr. I think Randy brought him up and mentioned him as someone who got into it initially because of his kids. His kids were in sports, and so he was photographing his kids. Much like many of us who have kids that do things, we get into kind of their pursuits and their passions, and that was a way for him to participate, without being directly involved, which I think is fantastic. And so, yeah, several athletes making that jump.
Yeah, and those two guys, I mean, two of the best baseball players that have ever played. Yeah. So we're talking about sports. Let's keep talking about sports. I understand. Well, from what I gather on the meetings, you take a lot of interest in what your kids are doing, and I know your kids play a lot of sports. And you've got a son that plays baseball. Talk to us about that.
Yeah, so just always something that my kids did and they were active in, and so for me, it was a way to be active and involved in their lives. I coached my son for a little bit when he was teeny tiny. And then that journey for me ended pretty quickly, as he got pretty serious about it at a young age. And I became a spectator, but started with my daughter playing volleyball. She actually came to volleyball a little bit late, relatively speaking. She started in middle school. And so, I did what, the only thing I knew how to do, which was learn as much about the sport as I could. So I spent a lot of time playing and hitting volleyball around with her, and she played competitively, both school and travel through high school. And when high school ended, she decided she just wanted to be a college student. She didn't want to be an athlete, and that's fantastic. We support her. We loved it while it was going on. It was certainly time consuming and it's really expensive, but just so much, I think real fun, and just time that you get to spend together, and just a great time to be a part of her growing up, and to see what a big part it was of her childhood and young adulthood. And I think a lot of lessons come from that, and I think she's learned how to persevere and work hard, and really be clear in her goals, and just a lot of benefit from that. So we're really proud of her. She's graduating from Baylor in May. So very soon we'll be making a short trip up there to see her graduate, and then she's going to go on to a graduate program in California for jewelry design and gemology. And so that's really a passion of hers, and she wants to pursue that. Maybe directly and maybe just in, a business context, and use both that and her undergrad degree. Who knows, right? But our son is really kind of our athlete, if you will. And for him, it started at a very early age. I laugh. I say he would play catch with you before he could walk. And so if you had a little soft Nerf ball or something, he was sitting up, you could throw him the ball and he would catch it and throw it back and play catch with a toddler, So that hasn't changed. When he's home, I still hear the ball bouncing off the wall upstairs, and that'll go on all day and all night and, nonstop. So this is part of his DNA and what he is and what he does. He's a competitive baseball player, and he's looking for opportunities to continue playing after high school. And, it looks like he'll have plenty of opportunities. He'll just have to choose on where and how far away he goes. And, at our, I guess, displeasure, he's willing to go pretty far. We thought he'd stay close to home, and he may still yet stay close to home, but it just depends on offers, right? And so he has that to look forward to. But glad to say I don't think that's his only avenue or pathway either. He has seemingly a passion for flying, and he wants to be a pilot. And so I think his plan is to play baseball as long as he possibly can, and then at some point he'll hang it up like most baseball players do, or I guess eventually all baseball players do, right? And then he'll go pursue flying at that point. So right now it's just fun for us to watch. We're effectively at this point spectators, so it's a little bit different role. Those roles evolve as you move through parenthood from time to time. So that's where we're at now, spectatorhood.
That's your kids are lucky to have such a supportive mom and dad in their life. You talked about volleyball being expensive, and the actual game of playing it when you're on the court's not expensive, but everything outside of that is super expensive. Baseball gets a little more expensive with all the equipment, but yeah. Now, are you all a Baylor family? Did you go to Baylor as well?
I went to Baylor as well. My wife is a Baylor graduate, school teacher. So our daughter will join that club here shortly. And my son, as I said, I don't, Baylor is probably just outside the reach of where he is from a baseball perspective, unless he goes the JUCO route. And he may. So if he goes the JUCO route, then Baylor will come back into play. So, we're a Baylor family. It really, you see a lot of Baylor families, particularly, we're both Baylor alums and married and have kids at Baylor. You see a lot of that generational at Baylor. In my family, my dad was one of the only college graduates, and he did it in night school, after, he started a family. I think my wife was probably in her immediate family the first college graduate. And so we were both very new to that. I think each of our beginnings and upbringings were pretty humble in the grand scheme of things. And so for us to kind of have a legacy of, Baylor alums now through our daughter, and maybe one day our son, who knows, right? Like that's, it's probably a little bit unique and different. We're certainly proud of it. We're Baylor fans and supporters. I won't say we're rabid. We don't really live and die by what goes on too much. And we're probably, we're probably as big a critics because we've been there and done that. And, we write a lot of checks for tuition to Baylor, which is now come to an end, thankfully, through our daughter. But it's interesting, right? But good school. We're certainly proud of it.
And now remind people that aren't from Texas, Baylor is in College Station. Is that correct?
Jason. I mean, you could have picked any town to get it wrong, and I probably would have forgiven you. But College Station is not the town, and it is in. Baylor's in the thriving metropolis of Waco, Texas, which was really not a great town when I was there. I was there in the early '90s, long time ago. Chip and Joanna had a little TV show, and I think they transformed not only homes, but just the entire community in the city. And Waco's had tremendous growth, both business and population, so many people. We have gone back to football games in the last few years because our daughter's been there. It's great excuse to sneak up and check in on her and see what she's up to, and we meet a lot of people there, and a lot of people are just local, and they moved from here and there and everywhere else and all over the country. They're not Baylor alums, but they're going to a football game because it's a thing to do on a Saturday in Waco. And we're like, well, what brought you to Waco? Why would you choose here? And they're like, well, we're newly retired and needed a place to live, and it looked great on TV, so we just moved here. So it really is an interesting town. I think it's gotten a lot more interesting in the last 20 years, but a lot to do, and I think a really good community there.
That's great. And for the people that aren't college football fans, have no idea what that joke was. College Station is the home to Texas A&M, and in Texas, your school is. That's just it's fighting words.
We're not big fans, right? And I think now the current generation, things have changed a lot. But when I was in school, way back in the day when I was in school, right, like a long time ago, we were all in the same conference. And so we played one another. Baylor played A&M, Baylor played Texas played A&M, go figure, right? Like maybe that'll happen again here one day soon. And so I think the rivalries were a lot more intense and significant. And we certainly have so many good friends that are Aggies and their kids are Aggies and going to A&M and, great people, but I'm not a fan. Sorry.
Well, let's go to some comments here. We got Seth that says, always count on a baseball analogy from Chad. It's so true.
Always.
Let's go to Sarah Matthews from marketing side. We can definitely tell our sales force is always into learning more about what and how we do it. Must be Chad's good influences. A groan from Chad. A noticeable groan from Chad.
Yeah.
Brittany asked, what does life look outside? What does life outside Axiom Medical look like?
I would say it's changing, right? I was telling Jason before we got on, I've been married 26 years now, which our oldest is graduating from Baylor. So, it's changing a little bit. For the last 10 to 20 years, it's about chasing kids and everything that they're doing. And there's still a little bit of that, with our son, because he's still actively playing and he still has a busy summer ahead. And he'll have one more school season next year, but, they're just winding down school season right now. So they're at the very tail end of that. So he can actually, and we can actually kind of see the end of that in the near future. But, that already ended previously with our daughter. So, there's still a little bit of that going on. We'll still run up to Waco if she needs something, or bring her something, or go to an event and see her. But it feels, like our activities and our things that we're involved in are starting to evolve and change a little bit, because our kids are at the point of, starting to pursue their own passions and goals and things they want to do. So, if I'm not, with the team or traveling to a client or at home here in the office, like what we call the office now, you'll either catch me at my son's baseball game or at some local Mexican restaurant with my wife, or when we can get through all of that stuff. We try to be involved in our church and our church groups and families that we're close friends with, and not real exciting outside of work and baseball. That's why that's all I talk about, work and baseball, right? It's the most exciting things going on.
Brittany says, congrats on 26 years. I got a comment here from Van. It says, I completely agree with Chad's calm nature. I'm also amazed at the entire team's talent at grasping detailed processes for multiple clients and processes for multiple Axiom departments. How do you keep with it all? How do you keep up with it all? Does Salesforce hold that much information?
I mean, at first I would compliment them, right? Like I really do say we've got an outstanding team, easily the best team we've ever had in my tenure here right now. And, I think our service is really fascinating to me because on the surface, and probably a few weeks into my tenure back in 2000, I probably looked at the basics and said, wow, this is really simple, right? Like this is really straightforward. Someone gets hurt on the job. Instead of walking into a clinic, they pick up the phone, call us, talk to one of our nurses. Our nurses give great care and recommendations, keep them out of the clinic, keep them out of a work comp claim, keep them out of an OSHA recordable. I get it, right? Like you trade that for an Axiom case, it's a win-win. This is super simple, right? And then as you get into the details and you learn more about how our process works and how our nurses interact with employees and how they follow up and how they question and how they record information and how that gets integrated into our technology so that we're providing notifications and information. It's really fascinating because it's way more complex to pull that off to get the level of results that we get than just simply trading an Axiom case for an ER visit or a work comp claim or something. But, really hats off to the team for keeping it simple, but then also being willing to dive into the details and understand the hard work and, really the sophisticated work that our nurses do each and every day.
Yeah, it is a complicated process, especially on our end, keeping track of everything. And I know on our side, the marketing department, we'd been championing for a while, like, hey, let's develop Salesforce. They have all these bells and whistles, and we can do that. And it took a little bit of a hurdle to get people up to speed on that, and then COVID happened. But you've brought a sense of organization and ownership, individual ownership of these people, of the people on the sales team, to be who they want to be and use all the services. So I've got a couple questions here that came off outside of this one that I'm going to ask you. On the topic of Salesforce, Kyle Chudy wants to know what your favorite website is besides Salesforce.com.
Besides Salesforce.com?
Yeah.
Wow.
MLB.com, I believe.
Yeah, I'm just as a website. I tend to roll through all the news ones that pop up, even the ones that are just automated when you open the browser just to look at stories. But I don't know. It's a good question. I probably tend to still, be a baseball shopper. And so, I probably, I laugh and say how good my son is. I don't think he's really asked for anything, but, I still buy him stuff because probably he doesn't ask, right? And so I'll be like, oh, that looks like a good bat, or that looks like a good glove, or that looks like, who knows what. So I'll probably stay on those websites more than anything and buy more and probably end up sending stuff back more often. I do like Amazon because it's just the easiest returns on the planet. But yeah, I don't really have any, any interesting, compelling websites there. Sorry, Kyle. It's
All right,
it's Salesforce.com or nothing.
I got one from, he is our current president and CEO. I don't mean to say current. He is our actual president and CEO, Mark Robinson. He has a in-depth one. So how do you cope from going from a big telco to a small Ocbed business? Was it a difficult adjustment?
Yeah, it was very challenging. And I think on the surface, I think it was easy, like a lot of things, right? Like it's easy to be lulled into a false sense of security that, hey, this is simple. I got this. And we're just gonna roll. It was fascinating to me to see what translated easily and what didn't translate easily, right? Because some things did. Sales I'll continue to say is sales. We're people interacting with other people, working to teach and educate and explain and really help understand. I like to think that we're consultative and, we bring a little bit of expertise to what we do. But I think a lot of while the basics translated, it was easy to get lost. It was probably easy to just simply say, you know what, on the surface, that's good enough. We have a pipeline, we have results, we have attainment. Even when I joined, we didn't have some, really clearly defined expectations for quota and attainment and pipeline. And so I think connecting all those dots was the part that translated the most from a functional perspective. And so we had to do a lot of calibration over the years. And then COVID took us on this huge detour and, changed all those metrics overnight. And then we had to change them back again and evolve to what, we learned our reps were actually capable of. Some of the activity levels that our reps started generating last year, we wouldn't have imagined that we were even capable of those types of numbers until they actually put them up last year. And so they've continued to do a really outstanding job, but it allowed us to, I think, in turn, adjust and edit the model so that they could clearly see, hey, how can I be successful? How can I achieve what I want to achieve? How can I meet the sales numbers that I want to meet? I think the nuance and the complexity came in the service, right? So you had to live on, I think my experience in telco and technology from just a functional perspective helped me, really establish the metrics for the organization. But then, applying our services and our prospects and our markets to that, really caused a lot of iterations and calibration of that over the last couple of years. And fortunately, moving out of a transition like COVID, I think it would have been really easy for us to, get through COVID, go back to really a pure injury case management type service offering, and really just have a complete miss because we got so accustomed to our services were so much in demand for COVID. Like our phones would just ring all day, every day. I was telling someone the other day, it's still, every time I watch The Voice, I get a little bit of, anxiety because, they show the list of personnel and executive producers, and it was, individuals that would yell at me on occasion, right? And we would have, I'll call it business discussions about what we should do. But, our business changed dramatically coming out of COVID. And if we didn't, I think, correctly, I think adjust to the changes back to that, I think we would have experienced far different results. And so fortunately we did. So much like Mark's question, hopefully his long question was sufficed by my long answer there. But that's kind of how I viewed the transition. Easy and difficult at the same time.
Right. All right. I think we have one last question, and then we'll move on. Oh, I think I have. Well, I've got two. Hi, Holly just commented on her Instagram account. Said, "Hi, Jason and Chad. Chad brings such energy to the organization. We're grateful to have him. Oh, isn't that nice?"
So nice of Holly. What a professional, pure professional.
To the people outside the organization, we always seem to end up talking about food. And a lot of our meetings, we'll have a town hall meeting, or we'll meet with the executives. Or Wednesdays, we have a company-wide mental health, mental wellness meeting every Wednesday at 11. But here's Charlie said, "Chad, so fun seeing it behind the scenes. It wouldn't be an Axiom conversation without food. What are your favorite foods, and do you do any cooking at home?"
I do a little bit. I'll tend to be the one that does the grilling, so if we have steaks or burgers or chicken or something like that, then I'll tend to work the grill, but I don't do too much real sophisticated. My kids seem to be breakfast, more intrigued by breakfast. And so, probably cook as much or more breakfast items. Traditional stuff, right? Like pancakes, waffles, bacon, sausage, grits. Yes, I did grow up in Southeast Texas. Grits is a thing. I always think about my cousin Benny, the grits scene. Love grits, love But my favorite foods, I would probably, if you asked me, it would be seafood. I grew up in, Southeast Texas near the coast. And so seafood was, really I'd say a big part of what we did. We probably couldn't afford to eat seafood very often, but if we could, we ate seafood, right? And so my family was very much a seafood pursuer. But I live in a family where my wife and effectively my kids have seafood allergies. So there's not a lot of seafood. And if there is, it's solo, just me. So that's okay. It's still my favorite food group. But if we're going to chase food around town, it's more than likely Mexican food. And if there's any Mexican restaurant that I would go to before any others, if we don't go into town very often, but when we do, El Tiempo on Washington, not the other El Tiempo locations, even the original. We went to the original lately, and it's not the same. It was good, but it's not the same. El Tiempo in Washington, the very best Tex-Mex that I've had in the city of Houston.
This isn't a plug for El Tiempo, but my wife and I always joke that the chicken fajitas, the chicken is marinated in panda tears of joy, which makes it very moist and delicious.
That explains a lot, actually.
All right, so let's talk about the future, and then we'll wrap up here in a second. What's the future hold for Chad Winkle?
Well, the first thing we're going to do is, continue to knock these sales numbers out of the park and continue to bring our service to people who've yet to hear about what we do and who we are, and just the great benefits that we offer, employers and employees alike, which is just a great mission to carry each and every day. I love doing it, and just thrilled to have the team around us, not only in the sales organization, but our marketing partners. Tremendous partnership with our marketing team. Can't say enough about you and your colleagues and Dara and the leadership that we have and support with them. Our operations team and our nurses do an outstanding job each and every day. So, as long as they continue to do that, they really make our job pretty easy. And so we look forward to telling more people about what they do. And we're going to continue to do that and, see where it leads us to. We've had really, I think, the great pleasure to meet some great new prospects and clients over the last 4 years. And really just can't wait to see what new industries, what new businesses, what new leaders we get to, really bring our service to. So that's the professional side of it. On the personal side of it, I guess I'm going to continue to pay for some education on one end and probably the other end too. And hopefully I have a few more baseball games that I get to watch, probably more than a few, but I will look forward to doing that. And then as we continue to just, make this transition and journey with, our family growing up and getting older, figuring out how to get to 27 years, then 28, and we'll do it 1 year at a time, I guess. So it's been, great, and we'll just look forward to more.
Well, speaking on that, let's end this with, do you have any little words of wisdom that you can share with the folks that are watching?
Words of wisdom. Not really, I mean, so much, but so little. I'd say I tend to be an open book. I think one of the things that we've tried to do, and I've tried to be as consistent as possible with my personal life as my professional life, right? Like the same values that guide me in the way that I act and the way that I look at things and the way I approach things in the work world is probably as close to the same as my personal life as possible. I mean, we try to be factual. We try to be analytical. We try to look at situations, and I think we've kind of ingrained that into our kids to, right, like just like our sales organization, right? Like if we fall short and we don't make a number or we don't get something done, let's not find ways to blame other reasons and other excuses or other factors or anything else, but let's take it head on and recognize it, acknowledge it, and, work hard and try to find, hey, what can we do differently to get a different outcome next time, right? Like, I think you hear athletes talk about being process oriented, and I'm very big on being process oriented, right? Like, there's always an outcome, but sometimes you got to just kind of let the outcome take care of itself. We're certainly aware of it, but if we just get really, really good at the process, and I think we're truthful and honest and candid with ourselves about, hey, how are we really doing? Jack Welch used to have a saying that, I read all of his books early in my career. And it's just one thing that really impressed on me was, he said his mom always told him, don't kid yourself, right? Like, don't kid yourself. It's always fun to pretend, and it's easy to pretend, but don't pretend. So if I had any words of wisdom, I would say, don't pretend, take it for what it is. Let's be as truthful and factual about how we're doing, and let's do better when we can. So that's about as good as it gets for me.
That's fantastic. That's great. Thank you. And it's true, a foundation or a process, have that in place makes you a lot more successful down the road. Well, thank you, Chad, for joining me. I really appreciate it. I've really had a great time talking to you. And to the people that were trying to leave comments in there, but I guess we were having some technical difficulties. I apologize for that. So we'll see you next time. Thanks again, Chad. I appreciate it.
Thanks.